Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship.
She did not walk around the building once. She just walked into the store and said, based on the phone call from 2 days ago, here's your little piece of pink paper. I'm supposed to phone them and ask them what I did, why I got the fine. I figured they could write it on the ticket if they really want me to know bad enough. If this is about saving lives, tell me how I'm not helping.
Today I'm bringing you the story of David Keam. He's the small business owner of Best Sleep Center. Now, David Keam provides an essential service. Best Sleep Service sells hospital beds, but they are also delivering and setting up these beds in people's homes so that they can remove their parents and their grandparents from nursing homes where people are actually dying of the coronavirus. David's company has also helped coordinate COVID relief for St. Teresa Point First Nation. David's doing really important work, and he's stepped up to help the government provide aid. But I met David because he reached out to us after he received a $5,000 lockdown fine from a private contracted COVID inspector who gave his company a verbal warning for being open, even though they sell essential medical equipment, and then he got a fine. Take a listen.
So in the beginning, before the second or third phase, whatever we're in now of the lockdown, I was considered to be essential because, let's face it, if you want to pull mom or dad or grandma or grandpa out of these nursing homes where they're actually dying, maybe you'd like a hospital bed or a home hospital bed or some sort of a appliance in your home that would help you to deal with them without having to lift them on your own. And we had, no problems with anybody. And on the next set of the lockdowns, they said, well, mattresses, and furniture and all these things, you can't sell these. Nobody needs to sleep in these times. All the stress that the government's putting you through, all the things you've got to think about, sleep, totally unnecessary. Phone your doctor. He'll ask you if you're sick. He'll tell you not to come if you are. You don't need any sleep. So we're inspected 19 or 20 times since the latest set of lockdowns. Nobody gave us a hard time. They all came in, put the thumbs up, walked away, agreed that the store was fine. Every once in a while, they'd say you don't have enough signs up as to what's not essential. So I got a 10,000 square foot store. I've got, furniture in it, and I'm not going to cover my store in plastic that the headboard's not available, but the adjustable bed is. I'm not going to cover a $10,000 bedroom suite that needs to breathe, in plastic so that you can't see it. Anyways, so this one person walked in and I wasn't here, and they demanded that my staff phone me. So they phoned me, and she told me that she didn't think there was enough signs in the building. So I said, fine. And she said she's going to give me a purple warning. And at least I thought she said purple warning, but then she said verbal warning. So after 10 minutes on the telephone, she gave me a verbal warning, I think to do with the fact that I didn't have enough signs up. So I came into work, printed another 50 signs, put them all over the store. And a day or two later, she walked back in. She did not do an inspection of the store. She did not walk around the building once. She just walked into the store and said, based on the phone call from 2 days ago, here's your little piece of pink paper. And so that's how we got our little piece of pink paper. So they didn't even fill in as to how I supposedly broke the order. They had 3 lines, like the summons or whatever it is, the ticket has 3 lines, which isn't exactly a lot of request for information. She only bothered to fill in 1.5 of the lines. you broke the order. Oh, okay. Could you say how? If you want me to improve something based on this, could you tell me how? Anyways, they've shown up 3 or 4 times since. We've locked the front door, and we interview every human being who walks to the door now. And we only allow people in who want to buy, say, bed bug protectors or home hospital beds, because we have had actually some sales of those, and quite a few of them actually, and or sleep essentials. And we'll see.
So what was the total value of the ticket that you received?
The little pink piece of paper says at some point in time I'll have to hand out $5,000 to someone.
And so to be clear, this lady was not a bylaw officer. She was not a cop. She was an RCMP. She's just an inspector.
She's COVID person. The government of Manitoba has decided to buy a bunch of orange vests and put them on various people, and write on the bottom of these orange vests that they are COVID inspectors. And these people go from place to place to place with a cell phone in their pocket, telling them where they need to go next or last or before the end of the day. And they come to the door, and one guy says everything's fine, and the next guy says everything's fine, and the next guy says everything's fine, and the next guy says you don't have enough signs, and the next guy says everything's fine, and the next guy says everything's fine. And then so my understanding of how this normally in the real world would go is you'd get a verbal warning. They'd say, hey, you don't got enough signs. Okay. And then they'd come back and say, hey, you don't have enough signs. And then they'd come back and they'd give you a written warning, and they'd say, listen, you don't have enough signs, and I want this many more signs, and I want them here, 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 and here. And then they'd come back and they'd hand you the first fine, which is $1,296, I understand.
Yeah.
And if you don't comply with this, well, then we're going to come back and give you the big whammy fine. And no, I didn't get anything but supposedly 2 verbal warnings that I'm not even familiar with. I thought they were just saying, hey, listen, please post more signs. But which I did. And I'm supposed to now phone them. There's a number on the back of the, on the ticket. And I'm supposed to phone them and ask them what I did, why I got the fine. I figured they could write it on the ticket if they really want me to know bad enough. If this is about saving lives, tell me how I'm not helping.
Right. If this were about saving lives and you needed to make an immediate correction to your business to save lives and stop the spread, you think they'd give you that information right away, right?
Well, I mean, they had another line and a half. They could have filled it in. So, I had a large request for an order. And this is the thing that the government, simply has no understanding of reality. I had a large request for an order from a First Nations community at St. Teresa's Point to help them facilitate a COVID center. And they needed 50 mattresses, and they needed 50 pieces of equipment, and they needed it to help facilitate a COVID center to separate people with COVID from people without in their community. Now, my understanding as a good Canadian who's learned over the years is that these people have a separate government. And when that separate government makes a request, I'm supposed to give it the respect it deserves and honor that request. So I let the government of Manitoba know that I was through the Health Seniors and Active Living Health Protection Unit, that I was going to facilitate this order, and that to facilitate this order, I needed to bring my supply chains together and ask them to supply the product that these people needed. Now, obviously they were going to pay me for it, but government of all people should understand that you don't pay today's bills with today's money.
Right.
So the money that the First Nations community gave me, was used to pay the bills that were due the day that they gave me the money. And that I would have to continue to keep my wheel turning to be able to pay the suppliers back 30 days or 60 days later, or I would have to steal the product from my suppliers and facilitate the COVID facility. And then when it came time later, because I'm in lockdown, I'd have to tell my suppliers, hey, I'm in lockdown, I can't pay you. And then they'd have to go to their banks and say, hey, Davey's in lockdown, he can't pay us. One of my suppliers is currently renegotiating his loans because, they come up once a year and you have to go back to the banks. His bank is, not as friendly as they were in the past during COVID. They want to make sure that people like me are paying him. So one of the reasons why I have continued to sell essential sleep items is I have bills to pay and a wheel to keep moving. And the government was quite adamant and concerned that I facilitate the COVID center that they thought was important. So now I think it's important to pay my suppliers. And to do that, I need to keep the wheel moving. And they're telling me my wheel's not important, and because they don't understand what a supply chain is.
You've received a $5,000 fine. I don't want you to pay it. I want you to plead not guilty.
No, thank you.
Because we need to fight this thing in court. We need to put these things before a real judge and make these COVID Karens in orange vests answer for what they're doing to small businesses and normal people like yourself. And that's why I want to extend an offer to you again, you plead not guilty. We'll crowdfund a lawyer. We'll fight your fine in court. We'll put you in touch with the top criminal lawyer. And hopefully maybe we can put the Manitoba government back in check.
Thank you. I mean that honestly. Thank you. Can't do it alone.
Now, this is absolutely crazy. Small businesses are being hammered by the lockdown. And even when they're helping during the lockdown, the government is still hurting them. Well, you heard me say it. We're helping David and his company fight this fine and get it in front of a real judge. David's going to contest the fine, and we're going to put David in touch with a top criminal lawyer to help him at no cost to him. Now, if you want to help David and others like him fight these outrageous lockdown fines, you can donate to our Civil Liberties Project at fightthefines.com. For Rebel News, I'm Sheila Gunn Reid. If you've received a coronavirus lockdown ticket, don't pay it. Fight it. Send it to us at fightthefines.com and we'll put you in touch with a top criminal lawyer. And if you'd like to help others fight their fines, you can donate at that special website I just mentioned, fightthefines.com.